Trevor Philips killed his own brother. He burned down the mall where his father abandoned him as a child. And that's just the beginning. Today you're going to understand why Trevor Philips isn't just GTA 5's crazy guy. You're going to see the childhood that created the monster, the betrayal that turned him into a beast, and the exact moment he discovered his best friend had faked his own death. Before he ran his own drug empire in Blaine County, Trevor was just a kid with no school, no fixed home, no one. This is the story of how an abandoned child became one of the most dangerous criminals in Los Santos. Before we continue, if you're into deep dives like this into the GTA universe, hit like right now. It really helps the channel grow. And while the video plays, answer this in the comments. In your opinion, is Trevor a product of his childhood? Or was he always like this? Hold on to that question, we'll come back to it at the end. 5 states, 2 countries, 14 different houses, 8 fathers, 3 foster homes, 2 prison units. This isn't a list of trivia. This is how Trevor himself describes his own childhood. His father was an alcoholic who lived in bars, almost never home. His mother, a prostitute, treated her own son like a stranger. One day, his father simply abandoned him inside a mall. Years later, Trevor came back and burned the whole place down. He had a brother, Ryan, and there's strong evidence that Trevor himself was the one who killed him. A child raised like that doesn't learn to trust. He learns to survive. And it's exactly that survival instinct that years later will explain the one thing Trevor never forgives: betrayal. Expelled from multiple schools, constant fights. But he had one talent: numbers. Math was the one thing Trevor was actually good at. His dream, though, was something else: flying. He joined the Army just to become a pilot, and he was good at it, excellent even, but he failed the psychological exam. The Army had uncovered what his childhood had already planted. No uniform, no purpose. Trevor drifted back to the Canada-US border. He became a drifter. Small-time crimes, no direction, no ambition. Until the day he met a man named Michael Townley. And the first job the two of them did together, and didn't end like an ordinary job. Trevor was escorting a shipment at the border. Only one person was supposed to show up. 2 trails of dust appeared on the road instead. The second man arrived, shouting at Michael. Trevor didn't think twice. He opened fire. The 2 of them dumped the body in a lake after landing the plane. They threw up on the spot. The stench was unbearable. It was there, under a corpse and their own disgust, that the most important partnership of Trevor's life was born. Shortly after, the 2 met Lester Crest, the mastermind who would plan the heists that would change everything. Michael got involved with a stripper named Amanda. She never hid her contempt for Trevor. Even so, Trevor built a genuine bond with the couple's kids, Tracy and Jimmy. Jimmy was afraid of him, and still he liked Trevor more than his own sister did. But Michael was changing, getting cautious. A pushover, in Trevor's own words. Meanwhile, Trevor kept pulling jobs with a new partner, Brad Snyder. Michael and Brad never got along. But Brad at some point suggested something unthinkable to Trevor: cutting Michael out. Trevor refused. In his mind, there's one line you don't cross: betrayal. Hold on to that, because that exact line is about to be crossed by Michael himself just minutes from now.
All right, everybody pays attention. No one gets hurt.
Michael had a plan with an FIB agent, Dave Norton. One last heist, a fake shot, and he'd disappear forever under a new identity: Michael DeSanta. The North Yankton bank job started going wrong fast. Trevor killed a security guard. The police surrounded the trio. The driver died. The getaway car got destroyed by a train. Brad took a bullet that was meant for Michael. And then the fake shot happened, except this time it was real, at least in Trevor's eyes. Trevor refused to leave his friends behind. He only ran when an exhausted Michael himself told him to save himself. Trevor escaped, and for nearly a decade he lived believing his best friend was dead. Trevor rebuilt his life in Sandy Shores, a meth addiction, a small criminal empire called Trevor Philips Enterprises, drug trafficking, arms smuggling. By his side, Ron, a paranoid conspiracy theorist, Wade, a naive drifter, and Chef, the meth cook. Trevor allied himself with gangs, the Aztecas, the O'Neill brothers, the Lost MC. But his relationship with the Lost MC's leader, Johnny, was tense. Trevor kept sleeping with his girlfriend, Ashley, over and over. It was during one of those encounters that Trevor overheard something about a robbery in Los Santos. One of the robbers had quoted a movie line, a line only one person in the world would use: Michael. At that exact moment, Johnny burst in, screaming. Trevor, consumed by rage at discovering his friend was alive, beat Johnny to death in front of Ashley. The betrayal Trevor swore he'd never forgive had just been confirmed. Trevor tore through the Lost MC's base, then sent Wade to track down Michael in Los Santos. He tried to strike a deal with the Chinese triads, but an ambush from the Aztecas blew up the partnership before it even started. Furious after learning the Chinese had sided with the O'Neill brothers instead, Trevor stormed their farm and burned it to the ground. Finally, Wade brought confirmation. There was a Michael DeSanta living in Los Santos, married, with 2 kids, exactly the age Michael would be. Trevor went after him. Trevor showed up at Michael's house in the middle of a family argument. The reunion was tense, but the two quickly slipped back into what they'd always been, a chaos duo. They found out Tracy, Michael's daughter, was about to humiliate herself on a national TV show. They rushed to stop it. They failed, and humiliated the show's host out of spite instead. The partnership was back, and with it, the heists. Trevor was recruited by a corrupt FIB agent, Steve Haynes, to help extract a prisoner. On that job, he met Franklin, and the two clicked almost instantly. Later, Trevor was called back in, this time to torture the very same man he'd helped rescue. He did the job. And against all logic, he still helped the prisoner escape, even knowing the man had a family and a life in Los Santos. Contradiction? Or the only moral code a man like this has left? Shortly after, Trevor planned his own heist, stealing a private security cargo. Except the cargo turned out to be a superweapon capable of destroying the entire city. Lester stepped in, took it all, and Trevor got cut out by Michael and Franklin, who decided the risk wasn't worth it. Trevor walked away empty-handed and furious. Trevor fell for the wife of a Mexican cartel boss, Martin Madrazo. When Madrazo refused to pay for a job, Trevor kidnapped Patricia. The fallout, Trevor and Michael had to go into hiding. A bank was robbed just to pay off a safety net deal with the FIB. A lab got raided. In the end, Michael settled the debt with Madrazo by handing over a stolen artifact. Trevor returned Patricia to her husband, heartbroken. Back in Los Santos, Trevor went to Michael's house. One simple question, one that would change everything. Who's buried in your coffin back in North Yankton? The two rushed to the cemetery. Trevor dug up the grave with his bare hands. It wasn't a stranger inside, it was Brad. The friend Trevor believed had died in North Yankton that same night, actually buried in Michael's place. A lie kept alive for almost 10 years. And as if fate wanted to twist the knife further, the triad Trevor had attacked years earlier showed up at the cemetery on me and nearly executed Michael, mistaking him for Trevor's boyfriend. Surrounded by the FIB, the IAA, and Merryweather Security all at once, Trevor made a decision. Pull off the biggest heist of their lives. A hit on the Union Depository. $200 million in gold bars. It was the job that finally permanently bonded Michael, Trevor, and Franklin. And right after it, everything was about to blow up for good. Remember that question from the beginning? Whether Trevor is a product of his childhood or whether he was always like this? Hold on to your answer, because the ending of his story is going to make you rethink everything. Subscribe to the channel before we continue. The next video is going to break down the origin of Michael DeSanta, the man Trevor believed was dead for almost a decade. Trevor's story reaches a fork with 3 possible endings. In one, Franklin chooses to kill Trevor on Michael's orders. Trevor runs, gets shot, falls onto a fuel tank soaked in gasoline, and Franklin finishes the job. In another, it's Michael who dies. Franklin confronts him at the top of an industrial smokestack and, in a moment of fury, lets him fall. In the third ending, all 3 choose a different path, taking out everyone who betrayed them along the way together and walking away as friends. 3 fates. 1 character, shaped by a childhood of abandonment, a friendship built over a corpse, and a betrayal he could never forgive. If this video changed how you see Trevor, hit like. It really helps the channel keep bringing you these deep dives into the GTA universe. And subscribe now because the next character we break down might be even darker. See you next time.